Was Christ a yogi? In considering whether or not Christ was a yogi, we should first understand how spiritual and how divine one must be before he can be called a yogi. A true yogi must be pure, chaste, spotless, self-sacrificing, and the absolute master of himself. A true yogi's mind should not be attached to sense objects or sense pleasures, and he should renounce these worldly pleasures in this life. A true yogi does not feel happy when he is in the company of worldly minded people who live on the sense plane like animals. He is not bound by family ties. A yogi is unfazed by the unpleasant or the pleasant experiences of life, and rising above good and evil, he should remain undisturbed by the success or failure, victory or defeat, which may come to him as a result of the actions of his body and mind. A yogi realizes that his body and mind are the playground of the omnipotent cosmic will, and he should resign his individual will to the universal and should be ever ready to work for others, live for others, and to die for others. A true yogi must see the same divinity dwelling in all living creatures. He should also love all human beings equally. He should have neither friend nor foe in the ordinary sense of those terms. A true yogi is illuminated by the light of divine wisdom, therefore, nothing remains unknown to him. Time and space cannot limit the knowledge and wisdom of a true yogi. Past and future events will appear to him like things happening before his eyes. All psychic and spiritual powers serve him as their real master. Whatever he says is sure to come to pass. He is easily pleased by everybody, irrespective of caste, creed, nationality, and religion, and with a loving heart, he blesses those who rebuke or curse him. If his body be tortured or cut in pieces, he takes no revenge, but on the contrary, prays for the welfare of his persecutor. Such is the character of a true yogi. From ancient times, there have been many such true yogis in India and other countries. The descriptions of their lives and deeds are furthermore as wonderful and as authentic as the life and acts of that illustrious Son of Man who preached in Galilee nearly 2000 years ago. The powers and works of this meek, gentle, and self sacrificing divine man, who is worshipped throughout Christendom as the ideal incarnation of God and the Saviour of mankind, has proved that he was a perfect type of one who is called in India a true yogi. The greater portion of the life of the Jesus is also absolutely unknown to us, and as he did not leave behind him any systematic teaching regarding the method by which one may attain to that state of God consciousness which he himself reached, there is no way of finding out what he did or practiced during the 18 years that elapsed before his appearance in public. He must have devoted his life and time to such practices as led him to the realization of the absolute truth and to the attainment of divine consciousness, which ultimately gave him a place amongst the greatest spiritual leaders of the world, as well as among the disinterested saviors of mankind. By studying the lives, the acts, and the most systematic and scientific teachings of the great yogis of India, and by faithfully following their example and precepts, an earnest disciple can, through the yoga practices given in the various branches of the Vedanta philosophy, hope someday to become as perfect as the Son of Man. This assurance must be a comfort and consolation to the soul that is struggling for the attainment of spiritual perfection in this life. One peculiarity, however, of the teachings of the great yogis of India is that the acquirement of spiritual perfection is the goal for all, and that each individual soul is bound sooner or later to be perfect, even as Christ was perfect. A genuine seeker after truth does not limit his study to one particular example, but looks for similar events in the lives of all the great ones, and does not draw any conclusion until he has discovered the universal law which governs them all. For instance, Jesus Christ said, I and my Father are one. Did he alone say it, or did many others who lived before and after him, and who knew nothing of his sayings, utter similar expressions? Krishna declared, I am the Lord of the universe. Buddha said, I am the absolute truth. A Mohammedan Sufi says, I am he. But every true yogi declares, I am Brahman. So long as we do not understand the principle that underlies such sayings, They seem mysterious to us and we cannot grasp their real meaning. But when we have realized the true nature of the individual soul and its relation to the universal spirit or God or Father in heaven or the absolute truth, we have learned the principle. There is no further mystery about it. We are then sure that whosoever reaches this state of spiritual oneness or God consciousness will express the same thought in a similar manner. Therefore, if we wish to understand the character and miraculous deeds of Jesus, the surest way to open is the study of the science of yoga and the practice of its methods. All miracles like walking on the sea, feeding a multitude with a small quantity of food, raising the dead, which we read of in the life of Jesus, are described by the yogis as manifestations of the powers that are acquired through long practice of yoga. These powers are not supernatural. On the contrary, they are in nature, are governed by natural, though higher laws, and therefore universal. Those who have read the Gospel of Buddha by Paul Koros will remember that 500 years before the birth of Jesus the Christ, Shariputra, Buddha's illustrious disciple, walked on the surface of water across a mighty river named Sharavasti. A similar account of crossing a wide river by walking on the water we find in the life of Padmapat, a disciple of Shankaracharya, the best exponent of Vedanta philosophy, who lived about 600 AD. Krishna, the Hindu Christ, or whose other name is Lord of the Yogis, raised the dead nearly 1400 before the advent of Christ. The transfiguration of Krishna is likewise most beautifully described in the 10th and 11th chapters of the song Celestial, and like Christ, he also fed a vast multitude of people with small quantity of food. There are other instances of similar powers shown by great yogis who came later, and these accounts are in every way as historical and as authentic as those of Jesus the Christ. Thus, we see that all the miracles performed by Jesus are to be found as well in the lives of Hindu yogi who lived both before and after him. So long as an event is isolated, it appears supernatural and miraculous. But if we see the same thing happening elsewhere under similar conditions, it assumes the aspect of a natural occurrence governed by natural law, and then comes a proper solution of the mystery, as well as the rational explanation of that which was called a miracle. It is in this that the science of yoga it does special service to the world. Jesus was a great yogi because he realized the transitory and ephemeral nature of the phenomenal world and discriminating the real from the unreal, renounced all desire for worldly pleasures and bodily comforts. Like a great yogi, he lived with a life of seclusion, cutting off all connections with earthly friends and relatives, and having neither home nor possessions of his own. Jesus the Christ was a great karma yogi because he never worked for the results. He had neither desire for name nor ambition for fame or for earthly prosperity. His works were a free offering to the world. He labored for others, devoted his whole life to help others, and in the end, died for others. He understood the law of action and reaction, which is the fundamental principle of the Karma Yoga, and it was for this reason that he declared, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that he shall also reap." Jesus also proved himself to be a great bhakti yogi, a true lover of God, by his unswerving devotion and his wholehearted love for the Heavenly Father. His unceasing prayers, incessant supplications, constant meditation, and unflinching self resignation to the will of the Almighty made him shine like a glorious morning star in the horizon of love and devotion of a true bhakti yogi. It is true that his soul labored for a while under the heavy burden of his trials and sufferings. It is also true that he felt that his pain was becoming well nigh unbearable when he cried out aloud 3 times, praying to the Lord, "O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." But he found neither peace nor consolation until he could absolutely resign his will to that of the Father and could say from the bottom of his heart, "Thy will be done." Complete self surrender and absolute self resignation are the principal virtues of Bhakti Yoga, and as Christ possessed these to perfection up to the last moment of his life, he was a true Bhakti Yogi. Like the great Raja Yogis in India, Jesus knew the secret of separating his soul from his physical shell, and he showed that the time of his death, while his body was suffering from extreme pain, by saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." It is quite an unusual event to see one imploring forgiveness for his persecutors while dying on the cross, but from a yogi's point of view, it is both possible and natural. Ramakrishna, the great yogi of the 19th century, whose life and sayings have been written by Max Muller, was once asked, how could Jesus pray for his persecutors when he was in agony on the cross? Ramakrishna answered by an illustration. When the shell of an ordinary green coconut is pierced through, the nail enters the kernel of the nut too. But in the case of the dry nut, the kernel becomes separate from the shell, and so when the shell is pierced, the kernel is not touched. Jesus was like the dry nut. His inner soul was separate from his physical shell, and consequently, the suffering of the body did not affect him. By this, Christ proved that, like other yogis, his soul was completely emancipated from the bondage of the body and of the feelings. Therefore, Christ was a yogi. Through the path of devotion and love, Jesus attained the realization of the oneness of the individual soul with the Father or the universal Spirit, which is the ideal of a Jnana Yogi as well as the ultimate goal of all religions. A Jnana Yogi says, I am He, I am Brahman, I am the Absolute Truth, I am one, the Supreme Deity. By good works, by devotion, love, concentration, contemplation, long fasting, and prayer, Jesus the Christ realized that his soul was one with the God. Therefore, he may be said to have attained the ideal of Jnana Yogi. Like Krishna, Buddha, and all other great yogis, Jesus healed the sick, opened the eyes of the blind, made the lame walk, read the secret thoughts of his disciples. He knew exactly what Judas and Peter were going to do, but there was nothing supernatural in any of his actions. There was nothing that cannot be done again over and over by a true yogi, and there was nothing in his life that cannot be explained rationally by the science of yoga and the philosophy of Vedanta. Without the help of this science and this philosophy, Jesus the Christ cannot be fully understood and appreciated. Material science now scoffs at his miracles, but they are corroborated by the science of yoga and confirmed by the deeds of the great yogis of India. No devout Christian need for a moment fear that physical science can ever undermine the work of Jesus so long as the science of yoga is there to sustain all that he did. Let him study the character of a Jesus through the philosophy of Vedanta, and I am sure that he will understand him better and be a truer Christian, a more genuine disciple of the Son of Man than ever before. Let him follow the teachings of yoga, and he will someday become perfect like Christ. Hi, I hope you're enjoying the videos. I'm not going to beg or persist or force you to subscribe or like the channel, but if you feel the content is worth it, then reward it as such. Thank you so much and have a great day.